Though it's been 50 years since humans first stepped on the moon, we haven't forgotten about Earth's natural satellite. Several missions since Apollo have taught us so much about the moon and have paved the way for humankind's return. I'm Alana Bartolini from ESA Education, and here with me today to tell us a little bit more about these missions and future exploration of the moon is Dr. James Carpenter. James, thanks for joining me.
Hi.
So to start off, can you tell us a bit of a summary about moon exploration so far?
The moon, of course, is our closest celestial neighbour. It's something that humans have looked at and tried to understand forever, right? But then lunar exploration really began in the 1960s and 70s, where we had robotic and human missions going to the moon. From the lunar missions from the Soviet Union, which roved around on the surface and returned samples. But then really the pinnacle of this was Apollo, and the first and only time in history that humans have set foot on another celestial body. Now, that was not a scientific program. It wasn't done to create new scientific data. It was done for a whole set of other reasons. But at the same time, it was really transformative for science. So what we learned from the samples that came back from the moon was the origin of the Earth and the moon as a system that has a common origin. We learned that the moon has been an archive of solar system history, that the moon is the only place where we can go to learn about the history of our own planet, especially in the early periods that have been lost from our own terrestrial geology. So this was really transformative for our understanding of how planets form and evolve, and become the basis for planetary science and much of what we know about our own planet too. So that's something which started in Apollo and has gone on since then. So people are still using the samples that came back from Apollo 50 years ago to do new science. And that's something that's really taking off again in the present time in recent years. At the same time, after Apollo, we had this period where not a lot happened on the moon. It was very quiet. There weren't any missions there. The moon was quiet once again. And then the last few years, we've had this renaissance of lunar exploration. We've had new missions from the United States and from Europe with SMART 1, and then more recently from China and from India and Japan. And so these new missions have created a wealth of new data, which have really given us a global context for what came before. So we're now starting to understand everything that we've done before with these samples and these early missions to the surface, but really in a global way, finding out what this means in a broader sense and how we can interpret that better. It's also taught us that even though all these samples, all this science that was done in the past is the basis of so much of what we understand about the history of the early Earth and the planetary formation in general in the solar system, it's very incomplete. That the moon is a large place, has tremendous diversity. We've really only scratched the surface.
So taking all of that into account, what are the next steps? What's in store for the future of moon exploration?
So I think what is coming is very